Hey, good afternoon and welcome to the interview.
Thank you.
How's life? How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm like everything is perfect.
Okay, that's awesome. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit down and do this interview with me. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. Have you always had a love for film?
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, I grew up in a house where my parents didn't want us to have any TVs, so it kind of made me love movies even more
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have access to them. So I actually, when I was a kid, I actually saved all of my money when I had like money from the grandparents and stuff for Christmas to buy a tiny small TV that I could put in my room to actually watch movies.
Right.
And because I bought it with my own money, my parents were like, "Okay, you can have it," and they understood very well. And so I'm from France, and when I was a teenager, they also understood that it would be cheaper for them to buy me like one of these movie theater card that you can go like once a week or twice a week for, like it's included. You just pay the monthly rate and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so movies is like, since I'm a kid, I'm just like huge freak of movies. I've probably seen most of the American big hits of the 80s and 90s, like when I was a teenager.
Do you have a favorite movie?
Yeah, when people ask me, I always say Forrest Gump.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I find that he has everything in it. Like you get the emotions, humor. You have the action, the directing, music, and the score. And Tom Hanks is just everything.
Believe it or not, but Forrest Gump is actually my favorite movie as well.
Oh, nice! Yeah, is it?
I
Yeah,
completely agree. Anytime anybody asks me why, I always tell them basically exactly what you told me. I think it
yeah.
just
It's
has
got everything. It's
everything.
just
Yeah, it's got everything to
yeah.
offer. It's got the romance, horror aspects, the action, all the emotion in the world. It's just a really good story. So, how did you begin your career and what drew you into screenwriting particularly?
Uh, so what happened is, there's two things that happened. The first thing is because I wanted to get in the industry pretty young. When I lived in Paris, I actually became, for 2 years, a chief of administration in a theater in Paris, with the idea that we had an understanding with the director of the theater that he was supposed to go to retirement, and then with a friend of mine, we were supposed to kind of take over the theater. But after 2 years of working there and learning about the plays, and I like to understand everything, so I I decided to kind of do the administration part first. But anyway, after 2 years, like the deal didn't work out. We were not happy with what was happening, so we both decided to leave. And at that time, I was 25 years old, and I was like, okay, I did a lot of experiences, saw how it works and stuff like that. And I was like, what can I do with my life to help me just grow even more? And I decided to travel first, and I pretty much traveled for 5 years, a lot of different countries, a lot of different visas, like different places. And when I turned 30, that's when for me, I was like, okay, I'm ready to just jump into it. So I actually pay a school in Toronto, acting school, because I like to act too. And when I was there, I understood that I also needed to write my own stuff because I have an accent. So if I wanna act, I need to write, and I understood that very quickly. And I just love writing. I just always did it, and so pretty much when I started at 30 years old, so way older than most people. But and then I kept writing, writing, writing.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, one of my favorite parts about hearing how people get into this business is that everybody has their own kind of like unique path that they forge. There's no like universal dead set way to get into it. That's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
interesting, especially that you went traveling around for 5 years. Traveling something I've always wanted to do.
yeah. For me, it was very important. I mean, being from France obviously allows me to have like easier visa than if I would just be American, because the US doesn't have much. good deal with
Right.
other countries, you know.
Right.
But no, I lived 2 years in Australia, 1 year in New Zealand. I did 2 years in Canada. I lived 6 months in Greece, 6 months in Dominican Republic, 6 months in Switzerland. So it allowed me to really like, and this is what living, not just traveling. You know, what I mean, I was really working there and stuff like that. So allowed me to just discover a ton of different culture, and for writing and writing stories is great because one of the main things, and we're going to speak about it later, one of the hardest thing to do is to make sure that characters don't speak the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like each character needs to have their own way to speak, and I find that when you travel like that, well, it just helps you to just, oh yeah, some people really speak that way and some people really speak that way, and when you can put it in a screenplay, well, that's a strength, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. So now that you have made your way to Atlanta and you've gotten into the business, what does a typical workday in the life of a screenwriter look like?
So for me, uh, if there's two things. There's the creation part, and when I'm ready to write, when I have a story, in general, I like to wake up not too late, meaning before 9. If it's one of my running day, I go for a small run, just to wake me up. And then honestly, I try to write when I when I'm really on a script. I write from like, I'll say 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. pretty much,
Okay.
and I push myself to just write. Then after, everybody is different regarding the way they write, and I'm speaking literally, like, because for me, when I write, I need to be laying down, like on my back, and I have my computer over me. I can't write sitting;
Right.
it kills me. So yeah, it's like pretty much wake up, get an hour to do your thing, to really wake up and like, take a shower, go for a run if it's a day of running, and then after I just lay down and just force myself to write. In general, I write like a good 3 hours and a half in the morning, like until 1:30, then I have a break, and then my afternoon is more like an hour and a half. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah, yeah.
write way better in the morning and then I stop because my brain get that. But that's the creative part. Then after, the other part is the business part, which is about meeting people, right? Because you can write as much as you want if you don't meet the right people to. So this is like just going to events and just find the people online, and like, so that's two different kind of days.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about connections in this business,
Yeah.
right?
But if we only speak about the creative part, for me, it's like a 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. with a small hour break to eat lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. And so during the creative part of the day from 10 to 4, when you're sitting there writing, something that I myself and a lot of other aspiring writers and screenwriters tend to come across is what's known as writer's block. It's when you sit there and you're just trying to write and write, but nothing's coming out on the pages. How do you typically get past writer's block?
So the thing is, when I write a script, by the time I'm on the writing uh, part, I won't have the writing block anymore because I know exactly what I'm going to write. So there's an amazing book that I'm sure your teacher spoke about, which is Save the Cats, uh, about screenwriting, and it's about how to prep your writing, and I honestly follow the book. So that means that there's days before that where I actually create a board of like each scene that I want in the books, in the script, I mean. So that means that before I write, I really start writing, I know each scene of the movie, you know what I mean, because
Right.
of I follow the template giving in Save the Cats. So when it's time to write, in general, I know exactly what I want to write. So it allows me to not have a writer block. So what could be more annoying is to get to this new story, to think about the new story. That could be where the block could happen. But when the story is developed for me, I'm like, I'm ready to go because I literally have like little papers in front of me to say, okay, this scene needs to go from A to B to C. How do I do the dialogue? And I love doing dialogue. That's my number one strength. Like dialoguiste. That's how we say in French.
Really?
So yeah, if you prep as a screenwriter, I feel that when it's a time to write, you should not have a writer block. It's more in the creative part that you could be blocked. But when it's time to write, for me, I never had a problem.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of a bit the opposite way. I'm really good with coming up with ideas and getting like the general synopsis of the story on paper, but when it comes to dialogue, that's usually where I tend to struggle
Yeah, it's,
personally.
it's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy also because, as I said before, like you want to make sure that not all characters pick the same, and you also don't want to make it sound cheesy.
Right.
So, and that's I think the part of like meeting as much people as you can in your life from all different places can help for dialogue. Like, you know what I mean? If you're only
Right.
in your room by yourself, at some point you're gonna do a loop, you know what I mean, and go back to the way you were writing like a few months ago.
Yeah, 100%. And in that vein, esteemed storytelling consultant John Truby wrote in his book, you've probably heard of it, The Anatomy of Story, that most writers work externally coming up with a generic premises for the story they want to tell and just sort of like snowball the story from there, generally focusing most, if not all, of their attention on the main character. Do you believe that this is the best approach to crafting a story, or should writers take a more like inside out approach with a step by step walkthrough process, as Truby suggested?
No, well, first of all, I don't think there is a best approach for everyone. I think everybody has to have their own approach, and I'm like, I don't think there is one that needs to be on top of all the others.
Right.
Um, I, I mean, you have to do what connect to your heart. At some point, that's what happens. So as soon as the story is good, but then after to tell the stories, yes, focusing on characters is important. But I mean, it's also very important to focus about the ambience of the place you put the story on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no matter what characters, yes, but not. I don't think it's the best. To reply to your question, it's not the best uh, way because I think everybody is different. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's the way it is. I think everybody is different.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, as you know, there was a 148-day writers' strike last year by the WGA, which saw writers in Hollywood protesting the use of artificial intelligence, or AI, in the creative process in films. What would you have to say to aspiring screenwriters today about the AI being used in Hollywood? Will writers still be able to earn a fair salary in the coming future, or will AI replace writers entirely?
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't know the answer of that question exactly, but from what I heard and when I'm reading, I'm trying to really keep the news updated on my side regarding this because it's important. I think AI can be used as an amazing tool. I'm not against AI at all for writers because someone like me with a French person that write in English, I do use AI for my editing. You know what I mean? I really
Yeah.
use AI to help me make sure that when I write action scenes, it's actually there's no grammatical error that I just don't always know because it's not my first language, right? But in saying that, using AI to create a story at first, I don't think it's a good idea, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be more and more done from what I'm hearing. I think AI needs to be here to correct, not to create. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is something that I'm afraid, but I don't know for sure. But I'm afraid producers are going to kind of do the opposite. They're going to create with AI and then get a bunch of writers, pay them less just to correct. And I'm just hoping that the good movies that we're going to see are actually going to be proof that it can't work because to me the good movies are written by people and then corrected for the little thing maybe by AI.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But uh, I right now I'm afraid that we're going to have a few years where the producer are going to want to try to use AI a little bit too much, and then it's going to show pretty much bad content, and they're gonna realize that people are not interested by contents, and at some point they're gonna really go back. That's what I'm thinking. But I mean, I don't really know, but from what I'm hearing, some people really use AI a little bit too much.
Yeah. Do you think
So
that for people who are aspiring to be a screenwriter, that it's becoming less and less secure of
have a
a
job.
yeah,
No matter what, it's a very, very tough industry to break in. I'm still trying to do it,
right.
even if I'm 40 years old. You know what I mean? And it's really about the people you know and stuff like that. They People are still looking for good stories. People are still looking for good script. So no matter what, if at some point you have something good, it's gonna work. It's just you're gonna have to meet the right person.
Right.
There's a question of luck in these jobs that is obviously very, very high. But uh, it's not easy. But I would say, to be honest, I would say even if you want to be a lawyer now, you know what I mean? Like AI is used in the law, or like in a lot of different jobs. So, or like it's not only the industry of screenwriting where AI might take over a little bit. You know what I mean? There's a ton of things that a ton of different jobs are going to be affected by it. So is it going to be harder than other jobs? I don't know. Is it going to be harder? Yes, a little bit, for sure, because now we also have to compete with this thing. But I do believe that if it's your call and you love doing that and you have a good story, you know, like you should not be afraid and be like, fuck this, I don't do it anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? No,
Right.
you have to, you got to believe that your passion and your dream are going to be one day there for you, you know?
100%. And in that vein, finally, what do you have to say to aspiring screenwriters who dream of getting into the business someday?
Um, well, just my number one thing that I would say is make sure you don't think that writing is just the main thing in your job. It's like 50% of the job. The other 50% is to be out there, meet people, and make connection in the industry and get interested in uh, even if you don't want to do it, but take an acting class just to see how actors are, and just speak with directors and even producer. You know what I mean? Like one of the best advice I had from people in the industry regarding screenwriting are not coming from screenwriters.
Right.
They're coming from agents, they're coming from producers, they're coming from director. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's my biggest advice is just don't think that writing is all the job. It's 50% of the job. Just go meet people and speak to them and hear them, listen to them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olive, for your time today. Your answers were truly exceptional, in my opinion, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to me.
Yeah, that was my pleasure. I hope it's gonna work for all of you guys.
Right.